Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's 10 minutes past the hour, and I'm happy to say that today we have one of the world's foremost thought leaders on academic leadership and on planning, Dr. Joseph Isaac. And we also have Ms. Rejoice Spencer, who's going to be introducing him. But I would like to present to you Dr. Kelly Samuels, who will be running the show today. Dr. Kelly Samuels.
Here. Okay, computer issues. Hello. I apologize for that. I am excited to be here, and we are all excited to hear this discussion around strategic planning. One of the reasons why we are so excited is because as a university, we just approved our 5-year strategic plan, embracing the legacy, transforming the future. So this is a great opportunity to hear some of the strategies from an expert such as Dr. Isaac in regards to not just developing a strategic plan, but also implementation of strategic plan. So Ms. Spencer will now provide an introduction of Dr. Isaac.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rejoice Spencer. I'm a graduating pre-law political science major from Clinton, Mississippi, and today I have the pleasure of presenting the biography of Dr. Isaac. Dr. Isaac is a vice president for the Schools of Graduate and Professional Studies at Cuttington University. He has more than 30 years track record in corporate and higher education leadership, including more than 2 decades of executive level leadership experience. He is a strategic and master planning expert with work experience at several community colleges and universities. Joe's higher education leadership roles span several positions, including university president, vice president, and mid-level administrator. He has chaired a community college board of trustees and served on numerous education and business and industry boards. Dr. Isaac is a decisive, organized, and result-oriented leader with 22 plus years of college and university teaching experience. He is a system thinker with strong analytical skills. Joe is a well-informed operating and capital budget planner with an understanding of mission-critical leadership matters. He is a change manager who believes in the values of shared governments. As a student of planning, Joe has written broadly on higher education leadership, planning, and environmental scanning. Professor Isaac holds expertise in strategic planning, management, and organizational leadership. Professor Isaac holds expertise in strategic planning, management, and organizational leadership. He is recognized for developing results in management theory for effective scanning and integrated planning. His work in the field of planning promotes the linking of strategic planning and budgeting. He believes that strategic planning must precede all institutional plans and that the planning process should conclude with an annual operational plan. He prides himself in identifying and developing new leaders. Throughout his academic career, Joe has worked with financial planners and supervised and chief financial officers at several institutions. He is a leader with sound fiscal predisposition, revenue development tech, and financial reporting experience. His fiscal policy background includes chairing of numerous budget committees, developing operating and capital budgets, attending budget hearings, and managing institutional budgets in excess of $47 million. Dr. Isaac is an adjunct facility for the graduate program in education at the University of the People, former facility of planning and management and finance and budgeting at the doctoral program in higher education leadership at Morgan State University. He is a former adjunct faculty for business, computer concepts, and computer information technology at Baltimore City Community College. Among his other faculty appointments, Joe held the position of associate professor for applied technologies at Montgomery College, Maryland. Joe holds a Doctor of Education degree in higher education leadership from Morgan State University, where he earned a Master of Science in city and regional planning. His undergraduate education includes a Bachelor of Science in Construction Engineering and Associate of Applied Science in architectural engineering from the University of the District of Columbia. His research interests include leadership development, organizational development, higher education planning, and environmental scanning, innovation in teaching and learning, and the curriculum of relevance. Joe is the author of the five Laws of Strategic Planning, a handbook for college and university strategy. Welcome, Dr. Isaac.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Great, wonderful. Ms. Spencer, thank you very much. Dr. Samuels, thank you. A special thanks to the leadership of the Booker T. Washington Leadership Institute and the IHOP committee that I should have put this all together. I am very grateful and I'm excited to be with you today. I'm going to jump right into it. And I guess, Dr. Chom, the protocol is I'm going to talk and then we will do Q&A later, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay. All right. Here we are. So here's the agenda for the conversation. I'm really going to discuss three broad areas of strategy. And that's going to begin with planning strategy or planning for strategy. And I'm going to then go into branding as a strategy. And this is academic branding, by the way. And then we're going to conclude with academic strategy, the main topic of our conversation. So I want to say again, I'm pretty excited and grateful for this conversation today. Let's get right into it. So planning strategy. Planning and strategy coexist. However, planning is not strategy, and strategy is not a plan. They work in concert, they work in parallel, but a plan is not a strategy, and strategy is not a plan. Planning provides the pathway, the route to the destination, to the future. Then strategy is there to give wisdom so that the organization can navigate that pathway. So you can see how they need each other. Planning needs strategy. Strategy also needs a plan. There are 6 stages of planning. First, you need a real big vision. You got to have a vision to balance or to serve as the foundation of your planning process. And then, of course, you need a mission. We're going to discuss vision, mission later, but vision is big, has to be big, unreachable, untouchable. And mission is something that either exists as a mission for the institution, or it can be a new mission. Then you need SWOT. And SWOT is an energizer. It's an energizer for the process. It has to be there before strategy begins. So do not plan without SWOT. SWOT is really scanning your environment, knowing who's in your workplace, who's in your marketplace. Then you need directions. Directions are like pillars for the plan, for the leadership. And so you got to have direction, and then you need priorities. The idea of priorities is really a no-brainer. And basically you have to prioritize, and you go through this annually. Then you need strategic goals, often called SMART goals. Now, this is where the rubber actually meets the road. So these 6 stages of planning are a must in planning for an organization. In this case, we're talking higher education planning. Now, how do we plan for planning? Again, you need wisdom. Here are some of the things that the wisdom must do. The planning vision must do. You want to define the new future. Where are we headed? That has to be in the vision. The vision is that new future that the leadership is interested in. The vision statement describes their future, but the vision has to be the future itself. And it is the idea that will actually direct you to that future. And it has to be shared among the stakeholders of the organization. You need buy-ins for this vision. It is an image, a mental image that the leadership of the organization should subscribe to. It has to be inspiring. And again, to get your leadership team to subscribe to it, it has to be inspiring. It has to motivate everybody. Now let's talk a little bit about mission. Mission can exist, or mission can be new. With vision, whenever you have a new leadership, there's a possibility that vision may change. But the mission for the organization always stands. It can be tweaked, it can be modified, but it is always pretty much the same or close to being the same. So what mission does is, it is the purpose and the ambition of the organization. Why do we exist? Why do we do what we do? Why is this organization here? Why is this university what it is today? It has to be inspiring. It has to be direct. It is the institution's business model. So if we were in business and industry, that mission would be very specific to a particular product or a particular product line. And but in higher ed, our mission can be a little broader than business and industry. Now here's SWOT. SWOT does 4 things. And this is why the SWOT is important. It outlines, it identifies, and outlines your assets, or what we will call your strengths, the organization's assets. What are they? How important are they to the organization? And your liabilities. What are our weaknesses? What can we do without? What is holding us back? What do we have to improve on? What do we have to be mindful of? Then, of course, you have possibilities, which is in the SWOT paradigm is called opportunities. But what are the possibilities for this university? Is it in that direction? Is it in this direction? And then how do we minimize our risk? So first we have to identify what the risks are or what the threats are, and then talk about how do you minimize them. So now you can see why SWOT is so important to the planning process. Now, after you've done all of this, you certainly need to go to strategy. Strategy is there to respond to one question. And that one question is how? How do we package our brand? How do we package our products? How do we package our services for delivery? Strategy exists at every level. So here is the importance of strategy. Strategy will take that vision, connect it with the mission to drive the organization to the destination. So strategy exists in all layers, at all layers of the conversation. Okay, so now you want to do three other things that strategy must take a lead on. Number one, your strategic directions. As I mentioned earlier, the strategic direction are your pillars. And so are you going to take this organization into 5 directions, 3 directions, 6 directions? Which direction do we want to head? Obviously, not just one direction. So the strategic direction are broad enough to capture lots of priorities in a particular direction. A good example would be online learning or digital learning or technology. That could be a direction for an organization, for the university to focus on. And then within each direction, you have to have priorities. So if you took technology and online learning as a strategic direction, what do you want to do about online learning and technology? So you have specific priorities. And I'll tell you a secret. The way that strategic planning really works is that if it is bottom up, if it is top down, it will work, but it's going to have some hitches. If it is bottom up, you can easily roll it back down. Then you have strategic goals. All of these 3 are strategic in nature because they're predetermined. A strategy is pre-discussed and predetermined. So you have to have strategy in your direction. You have to have strategy in your priorities. And you certainly need strategies in your SMART goals. Now, when you've done that, what you have is a strategic plan, which can be 3 to 5 years. I do not recommend any strategic plan in this dynamic environment to be beyond 5 years. In fact, I frown on a 5-year plan. 3 years, maybe 5. That's what you get. But guess what? Your job is not done. The work continues with what I call operational planning. We have to have an operational plan. An operational plan is an annual plan that helps the organization to actually implement the strategic plan. And this is where you outline all your many, many goals. Now, each goal, no matter how many they are, must support a strategic priority. It must support a strategic direction. Again, each goal. So if you went down to the departmental level and you had a goal that is on online learning, so you wanted to maybe upgrade your technology for online learning, for faster connectivity, that must support a strategic priority. And each strategic priority must support a strategic direction. There you have your bottom up format. So this is a very quick overview of how to plan for planning. First, you begin with a vision. Your vision has to be large, big, scary, untouchable, unreachable. Then you need to revisit your mission, or you establish a new mission. That mission has to be the core purpose of the organization. And then, of course, go to priorities and goals, directions and goals. All right, Now, I want to talk about branding strategy. Branding is important in the paradigms of planning. And the reason for that is that the university relies on its brand, whatever that brand might be. So we look at, I have identified some influencers, what I call brand influencers. There are 9 brand influencers that I identified. The first is stature. Why stature? Stature influences the brand, the organization's brand, the university brand. How does it do this? Stature is the reputation. It's the reputation of the institution. It is that element of the institution that people will most likely relate to at the beginning of any conversation. So stature is important. It needs to be preserved. It needs to be enhanced on a continual basis. And then products. Products certainly can influence the university brand. Products will include the programs, the academic programs, the research projects, the degree programs, whether it's non-degree or degree programs. Product will also include other work that is done, deliverables that is done by the university for its partners, for the state, for the nation for that matter, for global use. And then relevance. The university has to check its relevance periodically. I suggest that this is done on the strategic planning cycle. So if you're doing strategic planning every 3 years, you want to check relevance. And relevance will attach to products. It does question the entire institution, but you want to check the relevance of your products, of your programs, your academic programs. Where are they? Are they still serving the purpose, the original purpose that they were designed for? Do we need to tweak them? Do we need to create new degree tracks? Or should we eliminate? Now, eliminating programs are very difficult. My suggestion is innovate, create new rendition of the program. So you may not have to go through the approval process that you went through when you first started the academic program. Quality, price, and value. All 3 influence the academic brand. Quality, price, value, they work together. What is known as the quality of the organization and its services and its products? What are people saying? What are students saying about the degree earned and the quality of the degree or the service? What are the partners saying about the research project that was done, the collaboration that was done, and what is the level of quality for that? Price is a means of being competitive. Generally, universities' cost is pretty much not too far from each other. But there are instances where university can be much more affordable by being innovative. So you look at the cost of a 4-year degree at your institution. How comparable is it to its neighbors, to its competitors, to other universities that are operating within the same marketplace, in the same state, or perhaps the same types of university, whether it's private or public. So you look at that. Value is important because this doesn't come from within. It has to come from outside of the institution. So you have to look for data on value. And how do your graduates excel? What is the alumni saying about the value they receive at the university? And then the last three influencers are location, service, and campus life. Location has, obviously, we would think about physical location, but in today's marketplace, we have online location. So location has to be flexible, accessible. It has to be usable or user-friendly for that matter. So where are the services located? Can I find most of the services in the physical location online and vice versa? How is service provided face-to-face versus online? So location is very important, especially in today's global marketplace for higher ed. If you want to be competitive, you have to have an online presence. And having an online presence is important, but you have to be user-friendly and accessible. The ninth academic brand influencer that I came up with is campus life. Now, this goes back to the students and to the employees. Often we only think about student livability, students' accessibility, students' work, and how students discover themselves and how they learn perhaps diversity, perhaps how to solve problems. But remember, there's a workforce on the campus, and these individuals are also experiencing the campus life. So campus life has to be expanded to the employees and not just the students. So again, the image, the perception, the usability of campus life can influence the brand. So there I have stature, products, relevance, quality, price, value, location, service, and campus life. Those are the 5 brand influencers. Now, this is a big question. How do you brand a university like Tuskegee that already has an existing powerful brand? You might say, hey, we don't need branding. We already well branded. Who doesn't know Tuskegee? Now, I'll tell you, you do 2 things. First, you want to build on your recognition. You want to build on the brand recognition. We'll talk a little bit about that shortly. If your brand is excellent, and if it is possible that you can build on it, then do it. Then you want to also build on the brand loyalty. So brand recognition, brand loyalty, 2 important elements to advancing the university. What do you do to brand a powerful university? Build on the brand recognition. Build on your brand loyalty. Now let's talk a little bit about brand recognition. There's several things you can do. First, you need brand personalities. In business and industry, a brand personality would be more like maybe an individual that is well known in the community, perhaps maybe a movie star or a sports star. But guess what? In higher education, your best brand personality would be the students. The students are your best personality. Then you want to build emotional connection with your influencers, with the students, with the partners, with the parents. Because these are folks that will first recognize your brand. So there has to be an impact made so that folks will remember the name of your brand. And then you need continual advancement. This is a no-brainer. institutional advancement must be working over time, even at a very successful university. Institutional advancement is very important. So advancement will tackle these areas of exposing the brand in all possibilities, at all events, at all angles of the university. Now, before I go to brand loyalty, I want to talk about this. These are the 5 most recognized brands in the world. Check this out. Search engine, what we have, Google. Everybody know Google. $420 billion corporation established in 1998. They're doing fantastic. What's about handheld technology? You would say Apple. $2.8 trillion corporation established in 1976. Many of you remember the Apple computer. I had one of those. I don't know what happened to it. Then social media, Meta, formerly Facebook. $527 billion with a B. Just established not too long ago, 2004. And then you have for online retailer, you have Amazon. And look at this, Coca-Cola, a distant fifth, was still doing great. 1892, can you believe that? Currently it's worth $265 billion, still hanging in there. Now let's go back to brand loyalty. The question is, how do you brand a university with an existing powerful brand? You look at the brand loyalty, you want to pay attention to student perception. What is the perception that students have of this institution before they become your student? What do they think of this university? How are they processing this university? What are their friends telling them? What are their parents telling them? What do people say about the university? Student perception is key in holding on to loyalty or expanding the brand loyalty. Student experience, after you have brought them in, how is their experience? In fact, students experience the university before they become your student. When they are engaged in maybe a mission or maybe some type of summer program, the experience of the student is important. You always want to gauge that. What are they saying? How was their experience? Short surveys can be conducted and continuous surveys are important. Hey, how about satisfaction? Remember, we're talking about products and services, even though we're higher ed, but satisfaction is also important. When your freshman student comes to campus, you need to capture their perception before and after. You have to capture their experience, and you want to find out how satisfied were they with their first semester. How did we engage you? How were they engaged? How was learning? And not just the academic component, but all the student services, the non-academic component. Get those surveys, and those are things to be proud of. So these are the areas that can top the list in building on your brand loyalty. Perception, experience, and satisfaction. Now, to impact the academic brand, you need brand recognition and you need brand loyalty. First, you have to expose the brand and investigate how people can recognize your brand. and then brand loyalty, as we just discussed. What is influencing people to continuously think about this brand? If a student or a family member is thinking about a particular discipline of study, what institutions come to their mind? Is your university included on that list? If a student wants to major in engineering or specific area of engineering, and they were asked to list 5 institutions, are you going to be on that list? If not, why not? So brand recognition, brand loyalty, important. Now, we want to talk about academic strategy. What is it? What does it do? Why is it important? First, I want to say that academic strategy is not a plan. It is not an institutional plan. Academic strategy is not a goal. It's not a goal. It is not a policy, nor is it a procedure. So then, what is academic strategy? It is a technique. It is a technique of delivery, an orderly defined technique of thinking, of predetermining the university's action towards particular activities. It is an approach. It is an approach to how you create options, decision-making options for academics and choices and the making of choice. It is also a methodology. It is an organizational methodology for decision-making, for predetermination. Planning is predetermination. And so one of the reasons that most people take a strategic plan and put it on the shelf is because you just made a commitment. And your commitment is that you're going to do certain things at certain time. And so if you pull that plan and look at it, you're going to challenge yourself to do that. So planning is predetermination. What is the purpose of strategy? First of all, strategy is there to gauge intentions. Strategy is important to gauge your intention, the organization's intentions. It must drive the purpose to the outcome. Strategy has to be that vehicle that drives purpose to outcomes. It is a tool for action, not the action itself. It is a handbook. It is a tool that you must use for implementation. That's what strategy is. So there are 2 types of strategy. First is intended. Second is emergent. So one is planned, the other is unplanned. Intended strategies are very much planned. They are forms of predetermination. This is why some people hate planning, because you're saying, you're committing that you're going to enroll 200 students in your program in an academic year. That's what you're promising. It's your intention. Intended strategy is also, because it's conceptualized and it's formalized action. So it's not just an action that you're going to take now. It had to have been discussed. It had to have been perhaps formalized in part of a rating procedure. It had to be ready to be conceptualized. Then we have strategy intention as operational tool for predetermination. So if you're going to predetermine a result or an outcome, then there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason for the strategy. Now, what's about emergent strategy? Emergent strategy, as we noted, is unplanned. So by nature, it just happens. It happens in the moment. It happens during implementation. Emergent strategy happens at what we call the point of service or at the point of sales. And a good example of emergent strategy would be those colleges and universities that have very little or no online learning pre-COVID-19. And right after the COVID hit, everyone scrambled. Everyone had to put together emergent strategy because those strategies may not have been part of their institutional plan, their institutional strategy, but everyone needed to continue the delivery of content some way, somehow, virtually. So emergent strategy exists only during operational planning. When you start the car and you're driving the car and you're headed to the destination and there is an idea for you to take a shortcut, that's emergent strategy. Rather than staying on that interstate, perhaps you can go through a neighborhood to beat the traffic. That's emergent strategy. So there are two measures of strategy. First, strategic measure. And second, operational measure. Now for strategic measure, it is interested in the university's image. Remember, stature. Strategic measure is rooted in preserving and promoting the university's stature, the image of the university. It is interested in positioning the university in its marketplace. What is the university's market share? What is the university's share of that group of high school graduates that are coming out, that will be going out to college and universities? What is that number, first of all? Is it 2 million in your marketplace? How many of that do you want? What are you going to do to get that 2 million? So strategic measures look at that. The operational measure does something entirely different. It is interested in the goal attainment. It's operational in nature. It's interested in how goals are attained. How are you going to do what you say you're going to do? How are you doing what you say you're going to do? And after you have done it, how are you reporting it? What is the feedback mechanism? How do you let people know what you have achieved? Let me tell you something about feedback. I'm going to use enrollment again as an example. So assuming the university sets an enrollment benchmark of 200 students, or let's say 3% for whatever that might be. And that 2% was spread across the university, across programs. Every academic program has to project what their growth factor would be. Assuming that all academic programs were able to achieve some level of growth during admission during registration, even during the semester when you look at retention. How is the data being transmitted to the end user? If I'm in engineering, how do I know how many students to expect in this academic process of admission and registration? What is the data telling me? How is it trending? So feedback is important because it provides that information upfront for decision making. Now, here's a thought. This is a thought on strategy. So what if you were asked to park your car in your living room without any visible damage to your house, without any structural damage to your house, that the look and feel of the house should remain the same? For $2 million, if you were given 1 week to have your car parked in your living room by a car manufacturer giving you this challenge, what will you do? Now, some of you might decide to tear down the wall and rebuild it. So you call in a contractor, the best, the fastest, they're well-known, and they will tear down the wall. You'll bring the car in, ensuring that your car can park there structurally, and then they'll rebuild the wall. That is a strategy. Others may decide, hey, you know what? I will bring the best mechanic, the best car manufacturer there is to disassemble my car and reassemble it in the house. That is also a strategy. Yes, still, others may decide, hey, I will get a crane, take down the roof, get a crane to lift up my car and bring it in the building and let it down and then replace the roof. The point is, strategy provides option. Strategy must focus on the provision of options, different options. So, academic strategy has to do this, enhance these 5 areas: the reputation, the quality, the value, the location, and campus life. Now, so the strategy provides the wisdom for the idea to be connected to the purpose and provide direction for the destination. If you look at this, you can see vision, you can see mission, you can see strategic directions, you can see strategic priorities, you can see outcome, you can see future. So the end game of academic strategy is what? Academic master plan. The institution has to have an academic master plan. Why? Because an academic master plan drives the future of the institution. There should be no other plan without an academic master plan. If you need a technology plan, you have to reference your academic master plan. If you need an institutional advancement plan, you must reference the academic master plan. If you need a facilities master plan, if you need a business, university business plan, if you need a financial management plan, all plans must reference an academic master plan, because the academic master plan is driving the future. It's saying, because we are an academic institution, this is the outlook that we have. This is where we're going. This is where we want to go. These are the programs and services that we're interested in. These are the research projects that we want to pursue. These are the types of grants that we want to go after. Thank you very much.
Oh, Dr. Isaac, I just want to say thank you so much for that wonderful, insightful, and also motivational presentation. As I said before, I had the opportunity to co-chair our strategic planning committee along with Dr. Clayton Yates, who was actually on travel, and he was not able to attend today. And now we're at the implementation phase of the strategic planning process, where we are being guided by our provost, Keith Hargrove. So I was looking for if there are any questions in the chat before I have a whole list of notes and questions coming from the perspective of the strategic planning co-chair, that I would like to just use this opportunity, if there's no question, to kind of pick your brain and see what, as you stated, what wisdom and guidance that you can help provide us as we go through this implementation process of the strategic plan. And once again, I just want to say an excellent motivational and inspirational presentation. So are there any questions in the chat? I'll start with okay. The question is, was this, I think this is being recorded. Dr. Cham and Mrs. Calhoun, this is being recorded. Yes, perfect. So one of the challenges that we saw going through the strategic planning process was kind of emphasizing the importance of the strategic plan, as you said, not sitting on the shelf. And one of the things that we did do is we did have that bottom-up approach. We had a very broad-based representatives of individuals on our strategic planning committee. And actually we have broken down to implementation into 4 task forces. And those task forces also have a broad-based representation of the university stakeholders. So my question to you is, how do we use the strategic plan to hold the university accountable? And when I say that in regards to division, departments, how can the university be used to hold the university accountable to ensure that we maintain that brand, that reputation, that strategy that you referred to so eloquently in your presentation?
So the answer to that is, the reason why it is important for planning to be bottom up, especially the operational plan, is because of accountability. So after the strategic plan has been developed and approved, there has to be operational planning, annual operational planning. And this can be done on a very lighter scale than the strategic plan, but it has to be done annually. So it is at that juncture where departments will provide goals, and it's those goals that you're going to hold them accountable to. So perhaps the biology department might decide on a particular project, and that project in the annual planning process will be funded. They will be given timeline. They will be given other resources. They will be given a responsible person. In most cases, perhaps the department chair or maybe the dean. And so no matter how small that goal is, if it is achieved, that is part of your accountability process. If the facilities department has perhaps what you call deferred maintenance, a list of deferred maintenance, and their goal is to spend maybe $100,000 on particular priorities, and they have costed them out, and those priorities has been funded, and they're given the other resources that are needed. They're given the timeline. So this is where you actually hold each other accountable. And remember, I talked about feedback. Feedback is important because everyone needs to know what achievements have been had. That needs to be out there, not in an annual report, not in a newsletter, but given at all the layers of leadership, maybe at the faculty level, the departmental level, maybe at the council level, at the cabinet level. Those small victories need to be celebrated at those levels.
Thank you. And I love the importance of the accountability and the feedback. We're actually in the process of developing a balanced scorecard in regards to measuring the strategic plan, having a scorecard. What are some of the suggestions that you can provide to us when it comes to making sure that scorecard it just meets best practices? And how should we begin with setting that up? What are some of the things that we should include in that balanced scorecard, and where should it be visible? Should it be on the university's website? Should it be on a specific website just for strategic planning? What are some of your suggestions in regards to a balanced scorecard?
Well, I would suggest that there should be a champion, and I'm sure you have a champion of planning, but let me rephrase, there should be multiple champions of planning. And so it could be done by committee. And the other advice is be realistic in your goal segmentation, balance it against affordability, against budget. One of the ways that I think strategic plan can be well funded is to take an X amount of dollars in the budget for planning. And that can be voted on, or it can be the leadership decision or the president's decision. You can earmark 200,000, 400,000, whatever the figure is, and say, this is to fund planning priorities. And so that way you're gonna have realistic goals and you will have realistic outcome. But that's what I would suggest for that.
So another question is, how often should we review progress on our strategic plan? Should it be monthly? Should it be quarterly? Should it be annually? Or should it be a combination of both formative and summative reviews in regards to strategic planning?
I'll say annually, but here's a catch. I don't know how often the board of trustees meet. You want to give the president quarterly updates on the victories of the strategic plan. And it's up to the president to share that with the board. But at the end of the year, when you conduct your annual planning retreat, operational planning retreat, there you have to have this all-inclusive update. So yeah, quarterly for the president and annually for the community.
I heard you mention the importance of how of how universities had to adapt with COVID in spring of 2020. How we all had to. We also saw how flexible and adaptable and nimble we all had to be. When should we change or update and when it comes to strategic plan? So we have this document, beautiful document, and it's laid out. What is the best advice of when we might have to be nimble and flexible as a university when it comes to that particular plan? When we see, do we do that after we do our annual report and we see that, hey, this is not working, so we should come in with different strategies? So what's your best advice on ensuring that, you know, that we're carrying out the goals of the plan, but how do we ensure that we're adaptable, flexible, and nimble when it comes to planning? Although we have this document that we say, this is our vision, this is our mission, how do we ensure that we also have that flexibility? Because we might get to the point and say, like you said, about how having funding for planning priorities. Well, when we have a planning priority, that when we get to our yearly budgeting planning, because of course, as you said before, all strategic planning should be tied to budgeting. But what if we get to the point and was like, you know what, we can't play for this? What are some of the recommendations to ensure that we're nimble, we're flexible, that we can achieve our goals, but also maintain our flexibility and adaptability as a university when it comes to strategic planning?
Yeah, so remember the champions, the planning champions, because to ensure a successful planning cycle, there has to be some accountability. There has to be a responsible party. And so perhaps the individual or the office that's responsible for strategic planning has to manage the process throughout. This is not just an event, it has to be continuous. Mm-hmm. So my suggestion would be on a quarterly basis, there should be, when that office is writing their report for the strategic planning attainment, they need to have a conversation with all of the responsible parties about their goals. So now you can tweak the deadlines. You can, and there may be instances where you may have to abandon a goal and you don't want to continue too far into a goal where you expend so much that you don't want to abandon it, although you know the end result's going to be negative. So on a quarterly basis, that office, that planning office, has to have a conversation with the colleagues. And it's not a matter of managing the individual, it is a matter of managing the projects or the initiatives or the programs. So, you know, one of the strangest things in leadership is to manage laterally. So that individual has to be able to say to the dean of the education, school of education, hey, listen, we set 5 priorities, or we have 5 goals for your school, and I believe you have some funding, or perhaps what are the challenges? Tell us what the challenges are. Is it funding? Is it personnel? Is it strategy? What is it? And do you think you're going to meet these goals? And if not, why? So you can easily arrest those situations early on before the end of the planning cycle.
Thank you. Another question, as I said, we're in the implementation process and we have 4 task force and we have individuals on those task forces, but I would just like some of your, what are your ideas from your experience? Are there specific departments or positions who should be a part of the strategic planning implementation process?
It should be a cross section of the institution. Obviously, you don't want the committee to be too large. It should be a cross section. Universities usually have maybe division, departments, and programs and so forth. So perhaps you take it at the division level so that you just don't have cabinet members, but you have other members below cabinet. So I think it has to be a good number would be maybe 9 individuals, 7 individuals, maybe 11 or so. And it should be chaired by someone from institutional effectiveness or strategic planning, or it can be chaired by someone from advancement, depending on how the university is structured. So it's a matter of policing, if I may use that word, but so that everyone's going to have input in this conversation on a quality basis.
Now, I know Morgan State, and correct me if I'm wrong, you all are members of Middle States accreditation body.
Yeah, Morgan State is Middle State.
Yeah, you're Middle States, and we are a SAC COC school. And one of our standards in regard to institutional effectiveness looks directly at how we tie planning to our budgeting, to our institutional effectiveness. My question is, how do you all intertwine or ensure with your planning process that you were maintaining your accreditation standards? Or is that part of the Middle State standards?
Well, the planning process has to address those areas that were identified in the accreditation process. I would make them part of the strategic priorities or perhaps strategic goals. So if there was emphasis on student housing, for example, if there were emphasis on technology, I would automatically make them part of the strategic priorities or the departmental goals, and then push it from there. And one of the ways you connect planning and budgeting is at the operational level. This is why you need operational planning, because if you have an operational plan, you definitely have to fund it. The operational plan is a very simple document with maybe a spreadsheet with 5-6 columns that indicate goals and responsible parties and the resources and the budget and the deadline. And there has to be funding set aside for those goals, and it must be directly in line with the budget. Now, because you're doing bottom-up planning, if the budget is not an annual budget, for example, capital budgets are not annual, but if your budget, some people are on 3-year budget cycles or 2-year budget cycles, you can predict or you can set aside lump sum dollars for strategic planning and augment it after the budget passes. But you have to have that direct link, and you do it at the operational level.
Very good. Very, thank you. I think Dr. Jamay has a question.
Please go ahead.
Dr. Jamay?
Thank you very much. Peace be unto you. I'm going off in a certain way and see how this fits. Dr. Isaac, thank you so much. The presentation, like all the other ones, really do provide a predictability. And if you're looking at the university and academic strategy and this whole issue of academic success strategy and all of this, my question is this. Where in all of this is the university an innovator? I'm looking at the university in society. What does the university do to help or to be more inclusive of the marginalized, the forgotten, people in rural areas? That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of question that comes to my mind. Where does the university fit in all of this with all of the plans and the strategies? Where do our people fall, the forgotten, the marginalized? who and Tuskegee University play a great role in taking care of and bringing in slaves, those who are reading for the first time and all of this. So where is the university an innovator in this whole process?
Oh, great question. The idea of engaging the community, engaging the state, or even having a national agenda or even a global agenda is very important. And so because you cannot plan innovation, that's going to be part of the emerging strategy. But here's what the university can do. In service, in the area of service, there has to be emphasis on engaging the public, engaging the community, engaging the state, and having a global agenda. And the emphasis has to be real, and it has to be funded. So let's assume that the university may have some funding, internal funding, and that innovators, I'm going to call all the leaders and the faculty innovators, that can apply for these dollars for innovation, innovative projects. And it probably doesn't have to be a lot of money, but on an annual basis, you set the criteria and you can set aside some dollars and say, listen, write proposal, all department, all faculty, you can open it up to administrators. Write proposals for innovation that would impact maybe the marginalized community. You can probably direct it to a particular community, or you can open it up to any community that is marginalized. And there has to be funding set aside. This is the seriousness to planning. And if you really want innovation, and since innovation cannot be planned, you set aside a dollar, you engage the faculty and staff. And so the same way that faculty can apply for external grant, you should have internal grant for that type of project. And perhaps it can even be a matching grant opportunity, that an innovation grant that the university would match with external partners. So that's what I would say, Doc.
Thank you very much.
And Dr. Jamay, if I could just add, and I think that's a great question, Dr. Jamay, and also a great answer, Dr. Isaac. That was one of the things from the SWOT analysis in developing our strategic plan, is why we have a strategic goal. If you have a chance, community and strategic partnerships, and that came out of that need of the responses from the constituencies, from alumni, from focus group, from the community who were also involved in the process. And one of the key initiatives under that goal is to develop a Tuskegee University Community Engagement and Innovation Center that works directly with the Tuskegee community. So that's just, that's actually is part of the university's strategic plan.
Thanks, that's right.
That is great.
Any other questions? Well, of course I have one, Dr. Isaac. How can, when I think about strategic planning, one of the things that from looking at, from performing the SWOT analysis, from going through the environmental scans, having the data, is that, and this is one of the things that my colleague, Dr. Yates, and I, we had several discussions about that. How can the strategic plan be what we call a cultural change at the university? One of the things that we noticed from the responses that we received is that we were told this is the first time that there was broad-based participation with everyone at every level at the university. So how can we use the strategic plan to be what we call a catalyst for university and community change?
Yes, there's several ways. And it's good that you did a environmental scan. It's so key. And if you go a step further and you interpret the scan, for example, if the SWOT talks about a particular strength, and if that strength can be interpreted so that people who are not planners can actually understand what that particular strength means or what that particular weakness means. And then they will operationalize it at their departmental level. But planning as a catalyst, it's done at all the levels. The fact that you have a planning committee and that it is diverse and that it is university-wide and it's a cross-section of the university, that is key. And so then consistency is important to develop that planning culture. This is why an annual operational planning retreat or program is important. So then you're slowly developing a plan culture so that decisions are made based on plan. But if you skip so many beats, then you defeat the purpose of creating that plan culture. So the cheerleaders have to be very rigid about keeping up with that culture. And the SWOT analysis will help you develop the directions, and the directions are going to point you into what type of culture that will emerge. So it is difficult to say, well, you know, we want a diversity, we want a diverse culture, we want certain things to occur outside of the campus. Maybe we want to create a series of off-campus sites, maybe take the university to the community, whereby you can offer classes at high schools or at community colleges. You can partner with them. So all of that can help create the culture that you may least expect. So I think if you look at the SWOT and study it, it would point the university in 1, 2, or 3 directions. And that is the yearning of the culture that will emerge.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question. How can you market a brand, a university that is almost 150 miles away from a country's capital and considered very expensive to boom its enrollment from low to average in a country that is labeled as one of the poorest? I think in the county that is labeled one of the poorest. This question is drawn from the point in which I have considered the vast majority of the people living in that country to be living below the average. Do you mean county, or this is from MS? So I think the question is around the marketability of, and please interrupt me if I'm, okay, is people living in that country to be living below the average country? So I don't want to interpret, but I'm wondering if they're talking, if Melvin, if you want to sign, or if you're referring to, is this in regards to Tuskegee that is located in Macon County, which is one of the poorest counties? And how do you market Tuskegee in regards to tuition, in regards to other areas in the country? But I don't want to assume.
I think Dr. Samuels, I think I understand that question, if I may react to it.
Yes, please.
So think of the garment that we all wear. The shirt I'm wearing right now, or the shoes on my feet, were produced in a community In China, that is probably earning $1 a day. I mean, the trying to make is Tuskegee has to decide whether it wants to remain where it is or it wants to expand. Do we want to be a national university? Do we want to be a regional university, or do we want to be a global university? And once that decision is made, and that's a vision matter, but it can also, the idea can come from the bottom. Once that decision is made, because let me say this, when you're planning, you don't worry about funding. You worry about funding after you have done your strategy. But if you put budget ahead of planning, what happens is that it will control your thinking. It will squash your intuition, your innovation. So you really want to think it out loud. What if Tuskegee was in Germany or in somewhere in Asia or maybe in Africa, we had a campus there? What does that mean? How can we globalize this brand that is so well known and so recognized? And then you decide how to do that. So guess what? Then what you're doing is you're slowly saying to your stakeholders, we're going after funding outside of the region, because where we exist cannot fund all of our initiatives. So we're going to partner with other universities outside of the US or in other states so that we will bring in external funding to this region. The other thing that can be done also is partnership with corporations. I mean, I know Tuskegee has done many of this, but maybe this is time to re-energize itself to do a little bit more of that, so that brands, other brands may want to be partnering with this brand that Tuskegee has and create a presence. So I think I wouldn't worry so much about the state budget or the community disposable income or the other form of economics in the state. I would say let's innovate. Let's go after where the dollar is and bring it back.
Great answer. Great answer. Are there any more additional questions, comments, thoughts? Dr. Isaac, any closing comments for us here at Tuskegee University?
Okay. I'm sure you attempted all the questions in the chat room, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. No, so my closing comment, if that's what you're asking me, my closing comment would be what we just discussed about the brand and keeping the brand on the front burner, keeping the brand in front of everybody. Tuskegee is a great HBCU. Let everyone know where it is, what it can do, what it is willing to do, and let's talk about the globalization plan for Tuskegee, and what does it look like, when does it happen, how does it happen, or how is it shaping up now, and where do we find funding? I think those type of strategies are important to think about. Planning has to be owned by the institution stakeholders, internally and externally. And so it's important to report back to them what came out of the planning process. What were the goals and how were the goals supposed to be addressed? And are they being achieved? And if so, how much have they been achieved? How much do we need to fund the rest of the plan? You got to have a figure for, if you got a 3-year plan, you have to have a conceptual budget for that 3 years. A conceptual budget, it could be maybe 50 mil, it could be 25 mil, whatever it is, and then you chip away. And when you go back to the next cycle, you reset the dial, and then you look at something different, or you add on to those that were not achieved. So that would be my comments. But plan to plan, meaning bring together the individuals that are really champions of planning, and so that they can go out and recruit others to pay attention to the planning process. Think about the brand, and the brand is important because that's what sells the institution. Even to your current employees, many may be there because they love the brand. They just love it. They just like it. And some students do as well. And so keep that brand in everybody's face, in the forefront. And then strategy. Let academic drive the future. Let academic drive the future. So you have to have a vibrant academic master plan. And I would make that 3 years, but I will alternate it with the strategic planning cycle so that it's not on the same cycle, so that one plan doesn't expire before the other. I mean, they don't expire together, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I just want to thank you on behalf of the university. I was asked to be the moderator by the Booker T. Washington Leadership Committee. So at this point, I will defer to Dr. Chime, who is a member of that committee, in regards to any additional comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samuels. Thank you, Dr. Isaac, for an excellent conversation. Thank you, everybody, the students, faculty, and staff. I also would like to recognize some administrators who are here on the call. We have Dean Prakash. We have also our Associate Provost, Dr. Smith. We have our Vice Provost, Dr. Hill. And we have also Dean Bell, who is the chair of the B2WLI committee. And I would like to give her the floor for some final remarks. Thank you. You are muted.
Okay, I had to unmute myself. That was a wonderful presentation, Dr. Isaac. We're so happy that you came to Tuskegee. It was a wonderful presentation. I just want to thank you on behalf of President Morris and the Booker T. Washington Leadership Institute Committee. Thank you so very much for coming to Tuskegee. Have you been to Tuskegee on campus before? Have you been on campus?
Yes, I have. I've been there multiple times, and I actually I think I have a connection with Tuskegee because my high school in Liberia is named after Booker T. Washington. And so, yes.
Thank you so very much for coming. And do we have any other committee members on the call, Dr. Cham?
No, actually.
Okay, so on behalf of the Booker T. Washington Leadership Institute, thank you so very much. Very rewarding to hear from you today.
Thank you. Dr. Cham, you got something to add before I run out?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. And as you said, our connections actually are deep. And for the record, actually, Dr. Isaac hosted the 6 TU students who went to do study abroad in Liberia. By that time, actually, he was president of AME University, and he was gracious enough to house them in his own home.
Wow.
And we want to thank you for that.
So much for that. Thank you
Hey,
so much.
and I'm pretty excited for Dr. Shavers.
Yes.
Our doctor, I think she was on the call. Congratulations again, Dr. Shavers.
Yes, and that is right. Also, the other connection is he is a member of the dissertation committee of one of our students, Dr. Monia Chavers. So I guess the relationship goes on and it gets stronger. Thank you once again.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.